Season 6, Episode 4 of Spongebob Squarepants, Gone, is one of the more unique episodes of the series, at least in its concept. I was surprised to find that the whole character wakes up to find everybody gone trope isn't nearly as common as I previously thought. I don't know, it always seemed to me like one of those plots that the writers kept in their back pockets in case they ran out of ideas, like the clip show, or the amnesia plot, or the genre switch, or the Freaky Friday. Oh, wait, no, they actually haven't done that one. Yet. Anyway, my point is that the idea is pretty simple, and while it can have a lot of potential depending on how it's handled, it can also get uninteresting pretty quickly. We can only watch the same character talk to nobody in particular for so long. I mean, the TV show, The Last Men on Earth, is based entirely around this concept. That show had 4 seasons, and I'm gonna give you one guess as to how they kept a show about the last men on Earth running for so long.
Spoiler alert, they added new characters!
So it's good then that SpongeBob episodes are typically only 11 minutes long, and obviously don't have any overarching stories. It gives them enough time to establish the problem, and show us what SpongeBob would do if he thought he was the only person left, while still managing to fit in a sort of conflict. And all this leaves, like, a minute and 30 seconds at the very end to explain how nobody was actually gone forever, and that they were all just taking a break from SpongeBob, which is a plot point that I will get to later. This episode is alright. Nothing groundbreaking, but nothing overtly terrible. I have to say that SpongeBob promising to live out the lives of Bikini Bottom citizens in order to keep their memory alive is, like, super in character for him. I also like how they don't linger on SpongeBob being sad for too long. Obviously, he's sad that everybody he knows is gone, but then he finds a blank driver's license, and we get to see SpongeBob drive without hearing anybody screaming in the background, so it's not too depressing. I also love that SpongeBob doesn't even notice that anybody is missing until he sees that Gary's bowl is untouched. Like, I haven't even started my overanalysis yet, but if you want to go all film theory, you could make a point about SpongeBob's life being so repetitive that a day where everybody he knows is gone isn't too different from his normal daily life, and how SpongeBob is actually an allegory for Crohn's disease or some shit, I don't know. But that's not what this video's about. In fact, I give you all free range on that Crohn's disease theory. On the house. First come, first serve. If it wasn't clear by now, there isn't much of a plot to talk about here. It really is just about SpongeBob living life as the only one left in Bikini Bottom. It's more of a take a concept and see what gags we can squeeze out of it for 11 minutes type episode. That's not inherently a bad thing. I personally think that SpongeBob thrives comedically when the jokes are more quick cut. Obviously, good writing makes a good show. The floor here is made out of floor. But being able to write consistently funny jokes on top of a good story is something that should be commended. Of course, comedy is subjective, but that's actually not true. I, and only I, determine what is funny, and if you don't like that, then I deem you to be unfunny, and I sentence you to watch Family Guy funny moments until the end of time. Now, all that being said, I find this episode's jokes to be just alright. The bits of SpongeBob pretending to be different residents of Bikini Bottom were about exactly what you would expect them to be. He just acts like different characters. The most we get out of that part is that SpongeBob apparently has a level of self-awareness about his obnoxiousness, specifically when he's pretending to be Squidward, and he plays a recording of himself laughing on repeat to recreate Squidward being mad at him. So what, does SpongeBob know that he annoys the shit out of Squidward and just chooses to keep doing it anyway? What's the deal? I also wasn't the biggest fan of the whole Bodhi plotline. Not that it doesn't make sense, it actually makes a lot of sense, with Bodhi being a Wilson-esque object that SpongeBob personifies to feel like he isn't completely alone. It's a fitting plot device, just not a super interesting one. But the entire point is that this personified version of Bodhi only exists in SpongeBob's head. Everything Bodhi says is just SpongeBob projecting a sort of consciousness onto an inanimate object. It's not actually alive. But you can't tell me that that boat doesn't fucking move on its own. When Bodhi and SpongeBob crash through the wall of the pineapple, Bodhi is in front of the hole in the wall. But when SpongeBob finishes talking to Meat Rick, Bodhi has moved outside the closet door. I know that we don't explicitly see Bodhi following SpongeBob, but unless he's moving the boat himself, or he has multiple boats in his house, something ain't right here. I can excuse the movie theater gag because you could argue that the movie is just a hallucination, but when the boat starts moving like a weeping angel, that's when I start asking questions. Okay, I'm officially on page 3 of this script, which means I can move on to the overanalysis. This episode is about isolation. No duh. SpongeBob creates a personified version of his boat because he has nobody else to talk to. Just like Tom Hanks in Castaway, or Jenny Slate in Alvin and the Chipmunks 3 Chipwrecked, or me and you. And as crazy as a person might seem while they're doing this is actually one of the best ways to stay sane when presented with complete isolation. You see, humans are social animals, with a heavy emphasis on the animal. Over the course of thousands of years, we've evolved to thrive in group survival, as it allows for easier collection of resources and a more balanced distribution of work. Social bonds between other members of our species became a crucial factor in our survival. And when groups of people interact with each other, that's how we get a little thing called culture. Now don't worry, I'm not about to give a lecture about culture less than a minute after referencing Alvin and the Chipmunks 3 Chipwrecked. This is just a bit of context for talking about how loneliness affects us. Because trust me, long periods of social isolation can have some pretty intense effects on our mental and physical health. Being alone for too long can increase our chances of developing mental health issues like anxiety, depression, or substance abuse. Physically, it can increase the risk of health problems like heart disease or increased blood pressure. But this is not even close to the worst of it. If you want to see isolation at its worst, take a look at the US prison system and its use of solitary confinement. Solitary confinement is a form of discipline used on prisoners who are considered risks to safety or who otherwise violate the rules enough to be sent there as punishment. Prisoners are put into a small room with nobody to talk to, and it's about as torturous as you'd expect it to be. Now, thankfully, this practice has been getting banned and or limited in more than half of the United States over the last few years, and for very good reason. The effects of spending that much time in a single room without any social contact is, intense is an understatement. Anxiety, depression, irritability, paranoia, hallucinations, and even fucking PTSD. And these things don't just go away once you're out of solitary. No. Even after being released, prisoners who spent long periods in solitary experience long-lasting mental health deficiencies and may even leave with physical brain damage. Yeah, your brain can become physically damaged from being in isolation. For example, the hippocampus, the part of the brain most known for its role in memory storage, can physically shrink when under continuous and intense stress. It gets weaker. The human brain is incredibly complex, and one skill that it tends to thrive in is adaptation, the ability to change its functions and physical structure in response to external stimuli. This is what's known as neuroplasticity. The reason the hippocampus can end up deteriorating during isolation is because the stress interferes with its plasticity, its ability to adapt and change. Now, since SpongeBob enjoys social interaction more than the average aquatic life form, he definitely would be unhappy seeing that all the people he knows have disappeared. SpongeBob tells Bodhi that he'd go crazy without anyone to talk to. And yeah, that's an accurate statement. When you're isolated, it's very difficult to just adapt to being alone. If you're trapped on a deserted island, one of the most important things to maintain outside of food and water is your sanity. That's why Tom Hanks made friends with a fucking volleyball. You thought he was crazy with Wilson? No, not having anything to talk to would have turned him into the Joker by the time he got rescued. Now, to be fair, Tom Hanks was stranded on that island for several years, while SpongeBob was only alone for a few weeks, so it makes sense that SpongeBob wouldn't be as crazy. Is what I would say if we didn't see SpongeBob straight up gaslight himself into believing that Bodhi was jealous of Meatrick. I can genuinely excuse SpongeBob personifying his boat as a coping mechanism for having nobody else around, but Bodhi accuses SpongeBob of making a puppet of his former friend made entirely of Krabby Patties, which he did do, but SpongeBob is so far lost that he doesn't think of Meatrick as a puppet anymore. So the friend that SpongeBob made out of meat convinced him that his boat friend, who he also made up, is conspiring against him out of jealousy. This is some next level personification. SpongeBob has effectively made up lore for his coping mechanisms. He wouldn't have even reached this point if the Bikini Bottom mice had only been gone for a day as they'd planned. Which brings me to my final point. What in the ever-loving fuck was that ending? We find out that there is a National No SpongeBob Day. National, as in celebrated across counties. Everyone in Bikini Bottom dedicates a day to spend away from SpongeBob, and they celebrate it in a Burning Man-style ritual where they burn a statue of SpongeBob to the ground and dance on the fucking ashes? But they were gone for several weeks instead of a day. What the hell were they doing that all time? Also, Mr. Krabs trying to cheer SpongeBob up by saying that it's a whole day inspired by him is like saying that the Civil War was caused by a disagreement. God damn, I know SpongeBob can be annoying, but Jesus Christ, it's a miracle SpongeBob somehow kept his brain intact. Imagine waking up, thinking you're the last person on Earth, and you choose to spend the rest of your days living out the lives of the people you care about to keep their memory alive, only to find out that those people, including your best friend, are not actually dead and we're just taking a several long week break from you specifically. That is like next level fucked up. SpongeBob was a victim of both prolonged isolation and what can only be described as social outcasting from the people he thought were his friends and neighbors. So actually, scratch what I said before, there's no way in hell SpongeBob's brain is still intact after all that. He almost certainly would be left with severe cognitive deficiencies and a mix of anxiety, depression, PTSD, and God knows what else. In their attempt to get away from SpongeBob's obnoxiousness, they have effectively turned him into a shell of his former self. What's that Joker quote? All it takes is one bad day to reduce the sanest man to lunacy. Yeah, try 3 bad weeks. Thank you so much for watching. I did not expect my first overanalysis video to do so well, and I've been quietly freaking out watching the view count go up. And also, this ended up being the video that pushed me past 100 subscribers, so I guess that's pretty cool. And if you're someone who watched that first video and returned to watch this one, welcome back, and thank you so much. I don't plan on overanalyzing just SpongeBob, as there are many other cartoons that I'd like to talk about. For now, though, I still don't know how to end videos, but thank you for watching nonetheless. I'm sick, can you tell? Could you tell that I was sick by the way my voice sounds? I'm sick.